Have you ever noticed that when you assume the worst about your friends, you'll do something incredibly stupid just to keep everything together, including your own overly emotional state of mind? Well, that's what Lincoln found out in the episode I'm going to talk about today. So join me as I, SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, bring you another retro review from past seasons of The Loud House. Cue the intro! Today's episode is Friends in Dry Places. In this episode, Lincoln believes his friendships are coming apart and tries to keep them together while on his 5th grade class trip. Out of every possible way to close the book on the old status quo and move on to the new one in the next season, this was an extremely disappointing way of doing so. This was another one of those episodes where Lincoln believes something bad is happening or will happen to him if he doesn't do something to prevent it. His problem began with Lynn saying friend groups change once middle school starts and you end up forgetting the names of people you're no longer friends with. Only to an extent is Lynn correct in saying that, because middle school is usually the place where new friendships begin and old ones from elementary school might end. It has something to do with social cliques and associating oneself with those who share the same identity or something like that. I'm not going to get into all the specifics because it would take too long to explain, but it is true things do change once you get to middle school. Anyway, Lincoln doesn't want to believe his friendships are going to change, but then he notices how each of his friends are not only content with bunking with their other classmates, but they also join those same kids in different activities as opposed to the ones Lincoln wanted them to do. This sends Lincoln into a state of depression and paranoia and starts to think Lynn might be right. Even more so when Rusty accidentally referred to him as Lance. I don't even know how Rusty could have forgotten Lincoln's name. Maybe it had something to do with that turtle that attacked him earlier, but hey, anything to advance Lincoln's fear of being dumped. Anyway, Lincoln convinces Clyde that his friendships are truly falling apart, and they sabotage the activity sheet by crossing off their friends' names and signing them up for a hike in the attempt to keep everyone together. Lincoln secretly pretends to get everyone lost, but then he loses the map and blurts out, and I quote, "Now we're actually lost." His friends overhear what he just said and ask what he means by actually lost, and he's forced to admit he manipulated the activity sheet just so he could bring everyone together. His friends are furious about this, and I for one don't blame them for choosing to walk away and leave him behind. Granted, it was stupid of them to go in separate directions rather than trying to make their way back to the bunkhouses together, but like I said, their actions and attitudes towards Lincoln were justified. They didn't deserve to be done dirty like that, and they never did anything wrong, or at least they weren't intentionally trying to make Lincoln feel excluded. They were just trying different things with different people to see if they liked doing those things and being around those people. It's not their fault Lincoln was acting extremely clingy and hated the mere idea of someone other than him associating themselves with his usual set of friends. This really frustrates me because Lincoln never once considered the possibility of letting his friends be their own people, explore new opportunities, and at least try to be more supportive of them without taking any abandonment too personally. I really tried to sympathize with Lincoln. I really did. But to be that dead set against your friends trying to make changes in their lives, no matter how big or small they might be, just made him look like the bad guy who no one should be friends with at all. Remember how everyone except Clyde didn't make a big deal about Lincoln trying new things in predictability? They never once floated the idea of Lincoln potentially ending his friendships with his usual predictable social group. So Friends in Dry Places actually showed who had more emotional security and who didn't. Still, after Lincoln got himself stuck in a sand pit, his friends were quick to come to his rescue and were willing to forgive him by reassuring him that trying new things doesn't mean their friendships are going to end. It's not that great of an ending because there was never any real evidence to support Lincoln's convictions that his friendships were coming apart. Seriously, there was no concrete proof like, "Screw you, Lincoln," that would enable this kid to put his friends through an act of sabotage just to satisfy his paranoia. So yeah, the ending just is what it is. Overall, this episode does something that has an effect on the series going forward when it comes to Lincoln's friend group. When Lynn said friend groups change in middle school, you start to realize she may have been referring to the behavior of friends in the group. Think about the episode Saved by the Spell, where Lincoln's friends think performing magic tricks is too immature for middle school and they try to stop him from doing them at the talent show. That's not exactly being a that support a friend. How the best was won is a good example of how people's feelings towards one another can change on a dime, and how long-standing friendships can possibly end over the dumbest reasons. This episode also started a recurring theme where everyone freaks out about being apart, and they all embrace some kind of "we have to stick together no matter what" mentality. This is featured prominently in the episodes Schooled and Don't Ask Cargo, and each of them involve the main characters doing something crazy in order to keep everyone together, even if it means potentially costing their friend a great opportunity. I know everything I just said sounds like a crazy fan theory, but when you look at my examples from seasons 5 and 6 and really examine how Lincoln and his friends act following this episode, I'm strongly convinced Lincoln's paranoia about change and losing his besties rubbed off on everyone. Other than that, I suppose one minor positive would be the kids having fun with different people, like Stella hanging out with girl Jordan and Clyde hanging out with Richie, the kid who used to be one of Chandler's bully friends. Some of the more unnerving moments included Lincoln getting a face full of jam from Clyde's foot and actually liking the way it tasted, and getting a nose full of Lynn's unwashed sleeping bag. And one more thing, so many people complain about Lincoln being tortured at several points in the episode. Being trampled, getting electrocuted by Hassan's robot, getting a mouthful of sand from Cheryl, and accidentally falling off the raft she attached to her ATV and trying to chase after everyone. You don't have to consider any of these as the funniest occurrences in the world, but that's what they are. Random funny occurrences. What Lincoln went through is not considered torture. Seriously, some people need to look that word up in the dictionary before they start throwing it around so carelessly. The only other thing I can say is if you're looking for an episode where Lincoln freaks himself out for no good reason, you'd be better off watching Raw Deal. At least the events that took place in that episode did a better job of convincing Lincoln he might be in for a bad time. As for this episode, it was not a good way to close the book on Lincoln's time in elementary school. It was also one of Lincoln's worst performances of the series. This episode could have been a more positive experience than a negative one, but Lincoln was the one responsible for this train wreck, and thus ends his adventures as an elementary student after 4 seasons. With that said, I give Friends in Dry Places a 2 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of Friends in Dry Places. So I gotta ask, what did you guys think of this episode? Sound off in the comments below, and be sure to click that subscribe button for more Loud House related content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.